For most of us, our home isn't just a building. It's everything. It's a lifetime of memories, and it's the one thing we really hope to pass on to our family. So the thought of having to sell it just to pay for long-term care, well, that's a fear that keeps a lot of people up at night right across the UK.
So let's get right to it. Is the place you call home really at risk from future care costs? And if it is, what on earth can you do about it? To get to the bottom of this, we've worked directly with the experts over at My Tax Accountant. These folks are absolute specialists in financial planning for later life, so they know this stuff inside and out. Together, we've put together a clear guide to help you navigate what can feel like a really complicated system. Here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll look at the real costs involved. Then we'll dive deep into something called the means test. That's a biggie. After that, we'll talk about immediate safety nets, long-term ways to protect your home, essential legal planning, and finally, where to get professional help. Sound good? Let's dive in.
All right, first up, the care costs challenge. Before we can talk about solutions, we've got to get real about the numbers. Understanding the scale of the problem is the absolute first step.
And wow, as you can see, the weekly costs are pretty staggering. We're talking hundreds of pounds a week just for basic residential care. But if you need nursing care with more specialized support, that can easily shoot past £1,000 a week. You do the math, that can add up to over 70 grand a year. It's a huge amount of money. So, the big question is, who pays for all this? Well, the answer pretty much comes down to one thing, the means test. Honestly, if you only take one thing away today, make it this. You can think of it as the council's financial health check on you. So what is it really? Well, in a nutshell, it's the official process where your local council takes a look at everything, your income, your savings, and often your home, to figure out exactly how much you should be paying towards your own care. Okay, so let's look at the actual figures for England for the 2025 to 2026 tax year. If you have assets over £23,250, you're what's known as a self-funder, which means you pay for everything. If you've got less than £14,250, you'll get the most support, and if you're in that gap in between, you'll pay a contribution. So for that middle band, the council has this little rule of thumb called tariff income. Here's how they work it out. For every £250 you have over that lower limit, they basically assume you can afford to pay an extra pound a week. So, for example, if you had £1,000 over the limit, they'd ask for an extra £4 a week towards your care. Now, this is the question that's probably on your mind right now. Can't I just, give my house or my savings to the kids to get my assets down? Well, this is exactly where a lot of people get caught out. It has an official name, deliberate deprivation of assets. And it's a big deal. If the local council thinks the main reason you got rid of an asset was to avoid paying care fees, they can, and they will, assess you as if you still own it. And they really look at the whole picture. It's not just about signing over the house deed. They'll be looking at things like big cash gifts, a sudden streak of lavish spending that's totally out of character, even turning your cash into things like jewelry. The key thing they're asking is, what was the timing, what was your health like, and was avoiding care fees the main motivation? Okay, pro tip time, and this one busts a huge myth. A lot of people believe there's a 7-year rule for this, kind of like for inheritance tax. When it comes to care fees, that is just not true. A council can look back as many years as they need to if they think something fishy is going on. Okay, but what if you're in a situation where care is needed right now? What if you're under pressure to make these huge decisions today? Well, the good news is there are a couple of immediate safety nets built into the system for exactly this scenario. The first one is called the 12-week property disregard. This is an absolutely crucial breathing space. For the first 3 months after you move into permanent care, the council is not allowed to include the value of your home in their calculations. This gives you and your family time to think and plan without being forced into a quick sale. The second safety net is a Deferred Payment Agreement, or DPA. The easiest way to think of this is like a loan from the council. They'll pay your care home bills, and that debt is then secured against your property. It gets paid back later on, usually when the house is eventually sold, which might even be after you've passed away. So it delays the sale, but it doesn't get rid of the cost. Okay, now we're getting to the real heart of it, long-term planning. Stay with me, because understanding these long-term strategies is where you can genuinely take back control and really protect your home. So one option you might hear about is equity release. It mainly comes in 2 flavors. A lifetime mortgage is basically a loan against your house. You still own it, but the interest keeps adding up. A home reversion plan is totally different. You actually sell a share of your property. The key difference here, and it's a vital one, is about ownership. All right, another path you could take, and one that lets you keep the house in the family, is to actually rent it out. Instead of selling it, you turn it into an asset that generates an income, and you use that income to help pay for care. But, it's not all plain sailing. The upside is obvious. You keep the house, and you get money coming in every month. The downside? That rental income is taxable, someone's got to be a landlord and manage the property, and there's no guarantee the rent will actually cover the full cost of care. Now for what many experts consider to be the most powerful tool in the box for protecting your home, a life interest trust. This does take some forward planning, but it is one of the most effective ways for a couple to protect at least half of their home's value from future care fees. Let me show you how it works. So here's the process. The trust is actually set up in your will. When the first person in a couple passes away, their half of the house doesn't just automatically go to the survivor. Instead, it goes into this trust. Now, the surviving partner has the absolute right to live in that house for the rest of their life. But, and this is the genius part, they don't technically own that other half. Because they don't own it, it can't be counted if they need to be assessed for care costs down the line. And this little story makes it super clear. You've got Henry and Teresa. They use a trust to make sure that no matter what, the surviving partner can stay in their home for life. But it also guarantees that their son, Matthew, will inherit the house. It's security for both generations. Now, this is absolutely crucial. This strategy only works if you own your property as tenants in common. That means you each own a distinct, separate share. But that's not all. Here's where most people go wrong. If you own it as joint tenants, the property automatically passes to the survivor, and the trust and the will gets completely ignored. The good news is, a solicitor can change this for you quite easily. Now let's look at the next step. Planning for the future isn't just about the money and the property. It's also about making sure your wishes are respected, even if you can't voice them yourself one day. This is where the legal side of things becomes so important. The law that underpins all of this is the Mental Capacity Act, and its main purpose is simple. It's there to protect and empower people, making sure that any decisions made on their behalf are always, always in their best interests. And the most important practical tool you need is a lasting power of attorney, or an LPA. There are two types. Health and welfare lets someone you trust make decisions about your daily care and medical treatment. Property and financial affairs lets them manage your bank accounts, pay bills, and deal with your property. For total peace of mind, you really do need both. And here's a quick did you know that might just save your family a massive headache. If you lose the ability to make decisions and you don't have an LPA, your family can't just step in. They have to apply to something called the Court of Protection. That process can take months, it can be really expensive, and all the while, your finances are basically frozen. It's a nightmare you can so easily avoid. Phew! We have covered a ton of ground here, from the financial tests all the way through to the legal paperwork. So what's the next logical step you can take to go from just being worried to actually being prepared? Let's just boil it all down. First, get your head around those means test numbers. Second, be super careful about those deliberate deprivation rules. And most importantly, plan ahead. Look into things like trust well in advance, and please get your LPA sorted sooner rather than later. And I really can't stress this enough. What we've talked about today is a guide, but your family, your finances, your wishes, they're unique to you. There is no one-size-fits-all solution for something this personal. You need a plan that's built just for you. And that's where getting professional help isn't just a good idea, it's essential. The team at My Tax Accountant, this is what they do. They create these tailored plans day in, day out, helping people navigate the whole system with confidence. You can get in touch with them for a consultation. The number to call is 0208-570-8531. Or you can drop them an email at info@mytaxaccountant.co.uk. They can help with all of this, plus any other tax questions you might have. And just a final but very important note from us. This information is for general guidance. It's a starting point. Before you make any big financial decisions, it is absolutely essential that you speak to a qualified professional, like the folks at My Tax Accountant. Look, you've taken a huge first step today, just by taking the time to get informed. So the only real question left is, what's your next step going to be to turn this knowledge into a rock-solid plan that protects your family's future?